And hi, Christine. How are you?
Sorry, I didn't hear that because I heard the Zoom voice at the same time.
No
What was that?
problem. I just said, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Pretty good. Pretty good. So we're just waiting for Fiker, and she's planning on coming as far as we know, Ingrid.
That is correct. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the interpretation feature right now and share my screen. As you noticed, I already got the recording in progress and interpretation is on right now. So please go ahead and select the glove icon and select your preferred language by clicking on the interpretation glove icon that you should see on your screen. If I can have a thumbs up, that will be great. I see 2, 3, awesome. 4, great. So yes, we're waiting for Fikir. I have not gotten any communications. Okay, she will be here soon. I just got a communication as I was saying that. So she's running a little late, but we'll be here soon. Great. So just as a friendly reminder, when we have meetings and we're using the expertise of our local interpreters, we ask you all to please speak slowly, pronounce your words and breathe between sentences. This goes to grantees who are presenting reports today, to grantees who are presenting their proposals, staff and commissioners and everybody present in this meeting who will be speaking. If you have a headset, please use it or microphone. And please click mute when you're not speaking to limit any kind of background noise and avoid using any kind of idioms or phrases that might be a little bit more challenging to translate, given that not everything translates exactly the same way. We thank our interpreters for their expertise. They're extremely skilled, and thank you for being here in advancing language justice. So public participation in city meetings, we have a couple of guidelines that we invite you all to follow. So in order to have productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations, we ask you to please follow these guidelines because they do support the physical, emotional safety of our community members, staff, and commission members, as well as the democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. I should correct myself. It doesn't necessarily, we're not meeting in person, but emotional and mental safety is important. If you want to learn more about what these guidelines are, please visit the link that you see on the screen, or you can text me and I can put the link in the chat as well. These are some examples of those guidelines, so please follow them as much as possible. All remarks and testimony should be limited to matters related to city business. And we ask for participants to not make any threats or use any other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct a meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up using their name, and they should display their name before being allowed to speak online. This last sentence here is no longer true as of last month. All audio and video will be posted on it will be recorded for archives and available to online audiences. You do have to use testimony only via audio. If there's the participation of community members, grantees that are sharing their screen, please let me know, and I'm happy to grant that access to you. And I'm just gonna stop right there and hand it off to Lindsay Loberg, our interim chair.
Thanks, Ingrid. It is 6:08, so we will call the meeting to order. Human Relations Commission. It is November 28th, Monday. 6:08. First is and I've got some first, let's see, after the approval of minutes, we'll make space for an item 4, which is community participation.
Hey, Lindsay, it may be just me, but it's hard to hear you. Audio's kind of spotty.
I may have to call in. I've been struggling with and there's really the only solution.
Lindsay, what you could do is call in and do audio on your phone, but leave your camera on and just mute on your computer, and that way we can get both.
Yes. Can you all hear me like at all? Or well enough to proceed? Okay.
Yes, but it's just, it goes in and out. So we're missing some words.
Okay. Let's see. Let's do agenda adjustments, and then I'll call in on the phone so you all can hear me better. Or if anyone can take over the meeting, because it does take about, like, I've had to do this a number of times. It'll take me about 3 or 4 minutes if someone can take over running the meeting.
I did not catch all of that. I'm not sure if others did.
I think they're looking for somebody to
You
take
just
over the
need to
meeting.
know. You just want to make sure. I mean, we're happy to move ahead if you just need to call in real quick. It's fine. The first item is really just any changes to the agenda. JH, Christine, Carlos, any changes to suggest?
I was wondering if we might just when Lindsay is back on, if we might just take a few moments of silence to just think about what happened in Colorado Springs with the shooting at the Club Q. I think you know, it's if we could add that to the agenda, that would be great.
Carlos, JH, thumbs up. Do you support that? JH, sorry. If you're talking, we can't hear you. You're on mute. Lindsay, was that you coming in on audio on phone?
Yeah.
Okay, try again.
Yeah.
Awesome. So moment of silence, maybe to start off. Anything else?
We're missing our public participation item, which would become 4, and then action items bump down after that.
So, and I think that's everything.
Y creo que es todo. Entonces, artículo 3 es un momento de silencio. Artículo 4, aprobación de las minutas. Nuevo artículo 5 es participación pública. Artículo 6 va a ser artículos de acción.
That's right.
Correcto. Ok.
Christine, I heard.
Christine, oí parte. Está bien si puede incluir eso. Mientras yo estaba llamando, que mencionó una necesidad. Está bien si puedes empezar con el momento de silencio. Sí. Solo como la Comisión de Relaciones Humanas en Boulder es una comunidad que hace poco experimentó nuestro masacre recién. Yo quería tomar un momento para leer los nombres de las víctimas que fueron asesinados en Club Q la semana pasada en Colorado Springs y tener un momento de solidaridad con la comunidad LGBTQ en todo el mundo. Si podría, voy a leer los nombres y también si podemos pensar en la casi 2 docenas de personas que fueron lesionadas. Sería una buena forma de recordar el trabajo que hacemos y cómo intentamos llevar nuestra intención al trabajo que hacemos. Raymond Green, Lance, Kelly Loving, Daniel Alston, Derek Rump, Ashley Paw.
Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you, Christine.
Gracias, Christine.
And thanks everyone for taking that.
Y gracias a todos por
With us.
tomar un momento con nosotros.
So, item 4,
Artículo 4 es la aprobación de las minutas de la reunión de 24 de octubre. Para como recordatorio a los comisionados, es un momento para sugerir cualquier modificación a las minutas como están allí y estamos buscando lo correcto, no algo completo, sino nada más correcciones. Y estamos buscando una petición para aprobar, alguien para secundar y luego el voto.
Yo hago la petición de que se aprueben las minutas de la reunión pasada de octubre 24 del 2020. ¿Alguien secunda mi moción?
I second the motion.
Yo segundo.
I'll say.
Ok. ¿Todos a favor hay?
And
Y
the ayes have it.
los a favor sí ganan. Y solo un punto de proceso. Yo oí a Carlos de
The motion in Spanish, and then I did not hear interpretation. Are other people experiencing that, or is it because I'm calling in?
I think it may be because you're calling in.
Yep. We heard it.
Okay, cool. We can move forward like that then. Thanks for clarifying that for me. Okay, and then that brings us up to the modified item 5, public participation. So if anybody is here to address the commission, again, you'll have 3 minutes for that. And we just need an indication from you that you're here, for that. From how I can see the icons on my screen, one way that you could do that is with, because I believe we're not in our webinar format, we're in our meeting format. So folks could add a reaction or take themselves off mute and indicate that verbally. If I'm incorrect about that and we're in the webinar format, you can use the Q&A feature to do that. I am not seeing anybody indicate that they want to speak. And Ingrid, no one's indicated to you that they would like to speak. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. And so that brings us into our action items. Oh, when we were doing apologies, I was during agenda adjustments was distracted by calling in. So I forgot to make a note that this isn't a full adjustment, but just a note on timing for folks who are looking at the agenda. For our fund request, we have an estimated 20 minutes on there. But I think what's there, since we allow 5 minutes, and I'm looking to Ingrid and Elizabeth to fact check me on this. We allow 5 minutes for the presentation and then 3 minutes for a Q&A. So if we do not run over on either of those things, we're looking more at like 50 minutes for our item C. So just that note on time for folks who are joining us. We probably will not end this item at this action item by 6:50 like we're planning. It will be a bit later than that for the folks who are at the end of the list to get their fund request. From when we're starting right now, I estimate would probably be a little bit closer to 7:05, 7:10 when we're finishing the fund request. If we stay on track with with the time allotted to our items.
Lindsay, just a quick note on that may be right. And some of the applications or requests are actually different organizations applied for parts of the same event. And so they're actually going to kind of be some collaborative presentation on that, which probably won't take as long.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that.
What affected it. Things sometimes go over, but that's one. And I see Minister Glenda's here and some other folks who are going to be kind of making that collaborative request.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I understood there was a collaborative proposal, but it's good to know that that'll be also collaborative presentations that'll help with the timing. Thanks for that clarification, Elizabeth. So then we're going to begin with our protected class forum proposal. And then we're going to get
un foro sobre clases protegidas y luego vamos a empezar con informes sobre subvenciones y presentaciones. En el interés del tiempo y para respetar el tiempo para la gente que está presentando peticiones para fondos, vamos a limitar esta primera parte del foro a 15 minutos, por lo menos en este momento para empezar, porque a veces las conversaciones toman más tiempo, pero si toman más tiempo, más o menos por las, como un poco antes de las 6:40, vamos a cortar el tiempo y hablar más tarde sobre esto para que podamos realmente resumir la conversación sobre la gente que viene aquí para respetar su tiempo. Así que una propuesta para un foro sobre clases protegidas es un artículo que ha estado en nuestra agenda para tiempo, desde la primavera pasada, y realmente el propósito de el artículo hoy es mostrar cómo la comisión va a seguir adelante con esta propuesta, o poniéndolo en nuestro plan de trabajo o decidiendo que no vamos a hacerlo. Así que algo de información. Este artículo nos llegó cuando un excomisionado, Art Siegel, compartió con la comisión el artículo del Salem Reporter que algunas municipalidades estaban considerando y trabajando hacia agregar housings como una clase protegida. Eso es cuando empezamos a explorar el asunto, hablando con algunos miembros comunitarios que habían llegado a la comisión para hablar sobre preocupaciones sobre la gente sin hogar en Boulder en el pasado. Y realmente, desde ese entonces, mucho ha pasado. Han habido muchas personas nuevas involucradas con la comisión y hemos estado trabajando para actualizar a la gente sobre ese artículo. Como orientarle a la gente a ese artículo, ese tema y el trabajo de la comisión en general. También han habido algunas cosas para entender de forma interna. Por ejemplo, en la investigación principal nos conectaron con el ACLU y más recién para entender cómo comisión, si ese grupo podría también venir y hablar con la comisión y hablar sobre este tema de la gente sin techo, porque quizá hubo un conflicto de interés. Estamos aquí para actualizar el grupo sobre dónde estamos antes y llegar a la gente con una propuesta. Hablamos de eso un poco en nuestra reunión para fijar la agenda. Voy a abrir la palabra en este momento para Carlos, Ingrid, Elizabeth, si quieren agregar algo que quizá no mencioné en cuanto a los antecedentes. Creo que es todo.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Gracias, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, entendí que usted, revisé mis correos, pero dice que tiene una diapositiva. Sí, si es útil, lo voy a mostrar. Yo soy muy visual y algunos otros no también. Sería lindo. Gracias. Sí, está bien.
Unfortunately, and I'm sorry.
Desafortunadamente, lo siento que solo está en inglés.
Elizabeth, Elizabeth y commissioners, is it okay if I stop the interpretation for a minute and ask you, resume it, and then ask you to rejoin? Not rejoin the meeting, but resume the interpretation?
Of course.
In a
You need everybody to do that.
You don't need to do anything yet. I'm going to stop it. And then once it's resumed, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm actually going to stop sharing so I can see my full bar to rejoin interpretation in a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It should be ready in just a minute. Thank you, Maida. Give me just a second. I'm still working on it. And now I'm gonna resume it. So please, everybody, select interpretation, the language of your choice under the interpretation icon.
Do you need a thumbs up from commissioners?
Por favor, denme sus dedos hacia arriba, sus pulgares hacia arriba si me escuchan. Muy bien.
Wonderful.
All good. JH?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, thank you for that process point so we can all.
Ese proceso.
All right, Elizabeth, handing it back to you.
So as Lindsay said, when we met Lindsay and Carlos and Ingrid and I, just to talk about the meeting for tonight, we revisited this, how to move forward with this discussion. And what is on the slide is what we talked about, how staff might be able to help, you know, kind of structure an agenda item for, say, a February commission meeting. Get some more input on exactly who you might want to have as a panel, if you will. Could include some of the community, local community organizations, someone from either the city attorney's office or a staff member that has, or previous staff member that has a lot of background and context for the human rights ordinance as it was originally crafted. There could also be some representatives from organizations outside of Boulder that have expertise and experience in applying racial equity or other equity assessments to this question. And there are a couple of, you know, suggestions for networks, kind of social justice networks. There are networks like the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, just other groups that have some national perspective in addition to the folks present who originally had suggested this as a something for the HRC to look at. And we're more than happy, Ingrid and I, to kind of assist in reaching out to folks. As Lindsay said, one of the issues we just, as staff, it's our due diligence to check on is because there is an active lawsuit regarding homelessness, we just don't want to make a misstep and create an awkward situation or do something that we're not supposed to do or that the HRC might not be able to do. So there are a bunch of ways to address that. And again, be smaller group on advisement from the HRC just to identify people for that session. And I believe the reason that we were looking at February is just acknowledging that we've got some major holiday time coming up in December and January. It's a reset time, kind of end of year, beginning of year. And that would give us plenty of time, we think, to reach out to potential speakers, panelists, and let folks know that this is an agenda item in case they wanted to come and listen and make comment. So let's see, Lindsay and Carlos, does that pretty much cover it? Anything else that you wanted to add to the proposal?
Yo creo que para mí se ve completo y está bien, no
For
sé.
me, it looks complete. I don't know what Lindsay says and the rest of the commissioners as well.
Can you hear me now? I have a question, but I'll hand it to Christine, who may cover my question.
Yeah, I had a procedural question, which is for a topic and item of the scope, which I think is a very significant scope. At what point, if we were to decide that we would need some kind of public hearing about this, would that occur after we have this as an agenda item in our meeting in February, and then we would decide next steps? And part of the reason I'm asking this now up front is before we start scoping out who we would invite to speak. You know, I guess, you know, at what point is it, I mean, obviously we have public meetings, so anybody can come to our meetings, but, you know, having a set aside a special session on this so as to best utilize the time and expertise of the people who would come and speak. You know, what would sort of be the right sequencing of steps, I guess?
Lindsay, did you want to respond to that, or would you like me to have a shot at it?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'll answer from like my perspective of like what we were discussing, you know, initially back in spring, and what I understand like the purpose of having the item on this agenda is. Really, I think what we're talking about in February is having a more full context and understanding of this issue, the intended implications and the unintended implications. So we as a commission can decide like what we want to do to advance the item. So I personally feel like, you know, you said, Christine, like this is like a big in scope item, and I think we're like a ways away from considering or like planning for a public hearing, and because it has HRO human rights ordinance implications, I think it's a helpful thing to think about up front. So I'll pass it to Elizabeth to add on.
That makes sense.
I would only add, I think there's some flexibility, and concur with Lindsay. That's the gist of what we discussed previously with Carlos and Ingrid as well.
Thank you.
And then Elizabeth, I wanted to clarifying question what you said. It is okay to invite. You pointed out the like potential conflict with the ACLU. It does feel okay to invite them. Like there is no conflict there. Like to invite them to the meeting.
What I understand from our city attorney's office is there is not necessarily a conflict asking them to come and speak on this topic. If it were to kind of touch on anything that has to do specifically with an active lawsuit, regardless of who that would be, they would let us know. Otherwise,
thank you for.
I certainly would not wager to speak for the city attorney's office, but they, I think, would let us know specifically what, if any, boundaries we'd have to know about and watch for.
Thank you for clarifying that. So that that was my question. So I'll pass it back to the group for other questions that might have come up while we're talking, and then we can talk a little more about the proposal itself. Okay, so it sounds like we're all clear on the proposal to have a February 2023 meeting agenda item to host a panel of speakers that includes those groups that Elizabeth named, or types of groups that Elizabeth named, in order to really more fully inform us on this issue, so that we can better understand the implications, both intended, desired, and maybe unanticipated and potentially undesired of this thing we've been curious about for some time now. Part of this is that 1 to 2 of HRC members are going to work closely with staff on invitations logistics, and I think it would be helpful for us to kind of zoom in a little bit here, and we're up on that 38, 39 minute mark that I noted earlier. So I'm going to propose that we go through the fund requests and the fund reports and fund requests, and then loop back to this item to more conversation about which of us HRC members are going to do that work, and then making a decision about this action item out of respect for the time of the presenters tonight. That I would just like a thumbs up from the commissioners, or any kind of objection. All good? JH, good with you? Cool. Awesome. So that brings us back to our only fund report. I recall it's from Lando, and we have Travis presenting.
Thank you very much. I need to ask the question everyone asks. Can you hear me? Excellent. Okay. I was on a Zoom. I was on a Zoom 2 weeks ago, and I was talking and talking and talking, and found out I'd been talking to myself. No one could hear me for 5 minutes. It was amazing. Thank you very much for your time this evening. My name is Travis LaBerge.
That would be terrible in our case, Travis, because we have 5 minutes for you. And then 3 minutes for questions. But thank you for being here. I'll pass it to you for your report.
Thank you. My name is Travis LaBerge. I'm the executive director and founder at Parlando School of Musical Arts. Our collaborative partner, author Vista Carson, is not going to be able to make it this evening. She's actually teaching a class at CU on Mondays this semester, and she couldn't step out for the meeting. I guess the students needed her too much. It's nice to be back here with the HRC after a very successful series of book readings and performances, which was funded in part through your generosity. A little bit about Parlando to start. We offer music lessons and classes. We produce musical and theatrical works, and we provide outreach to thousands of people every month, including early childhood groups, on-site support for school band, orchestra, and choir programs, performances and educational opportunities for senior citizens, music and arts programming for people with intellectual disabilities and neurodiversities, and tuition assistance for students who can't afford music lessons. We remain very excited about this collaboration with Vista because it combines many of the efforts we are seeking to advance, including additional ways to engage school-age children, the opportunity to engage new members of the Boulder community, the promotion of Boulder-based artists, and it promotes accessibility, representationality financially, and by removing transportation barriers.
Travis, sorry, this is Elizabeth.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I think we were going to say the same thing. The interpreters requested if you could please slow down just a little bit. She'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I have this bad habit of talking really fast and mumbling. And I'm glad my wife's not here right now because she would just say that, you know, all the time she's told me those two things. She's been right. It's not just me. So I'll back up just a little bit. We remain really excited about the collaboration with VISTA because it combines many of the efforts that we are seeking to advance and that we believe overlap with the HRC's efforts, specifically ways to engage school-age children, the opportunity to engage new members of the Boulder community, promotion of artists in Boulder, specifically Boulder-based artists. And this collaboration also promotes accessibility through representation, financial accessibility, and by bringing the book readings and performances to places where kids and families already are, it removes transportation barriers as well. During a time when we are somehow having conversations once again about the banning of books, it has been very refreshing to share a new book with our community that centers and celebrates diversity. We are excited to share that 9 book readings and performances have been completed in 2022 thus far, with nearly 300 books and over 400 maracas being given away during this time. While we believe this project, we always believed from the beginning this project would be a success, we certainly needed proof of concept. Your funding helped jumpstart this program. In addition to the 9 readings we completed this year, we already have several readings confirmed or in the works for 2023. And these includes readings at the Dairy Arts Center with students from Whittier Elementary. And we're hoping at least one additional school during that event with the Dairy. At least 3 branches of the Boulder Library, including the main library. And those are either the dates are confirmed or we're in direct communication with the branch directors to just, you know, we're just finalizing the dates. At least 1 additional non-Boulder library and at least 2 schools in Arvada. Additionally, we have 2 BVSD combined school programs during in-service days that will be happening. And at least 2 additional in-school performances in the city of Boulder in 2023, all in the spring semester, so first half of the year. And finally, Ms. Carson is currently finishing a second book entitled We Dance Together. And this companion book follows the same format as We Play Music Together, just focusing on dance. And we are planning to do a combined reading and performance of the 2 books in mid to late 2023, bringing dance and music together. Once the presentation is ready, we'll reconnect with all the schools, organizations, and groups that we've previously worked with and make a return appearance. And given that we're working with mostly preschool through 2nd grade, most of the students will be cycling through and they'll be new, even if it's the same organization or school or library. And at this point, I would love to answer any questions you have. And thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much, Travis. Questions from the commissioners? Gage, did I see your hand?
I don't think I have a question, but I just want to say to Travis, keep up the good work because both of my kids went to Palando for piano.
Yes, yes.
So it was good experience. And John and Elizabeth, they're still doing music, which is good. So that's
great. And they were in, was it Honk, the musical as well? Actually, you and I sat together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both of my kids, okay.
I love that personal connection. That's so lovely. Carlos?
Yes, I have a question. Do you have a plan or does this course that you're giving, are you thinking about presenting it in Spanish or is it just in English?
That's a great question. And currently it's just in English. We did do a presentation at the Broomfield Library we did a promotion in Spanish so that we would have more people likely to come to the event, but we do not have it in Spanish, the presentation itself in Spanish. Although having said that, I realize that the book is, the words in the book, being that it's a board book for kids, is so simple that it really wouldn't take any extra time to do it that way. So I'm going to make a note that even though we don't have the book in Spanish, I see no reason why we couldn't do the readings that we're planning on in a bilingual setting. Thank you for that.
Christine.
Also not a question, just a comment. I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And when you were last here a few months ago, which must have been with the request, I remember hearing your retrospective back from then, and then I'm listening to your retrospective now, and I feel like you just keep doing more and more and reaching more and more kids. So I just think that's terrific. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the connection to Aubrey at BVSD. We've actually gotten into a few more schools in BVSD because of that connection.
Oh, great! I'm so glad.
And then there was another connection where we actually just joined the Boulder branch of the NAACP officially last week as a corporate member. And we're hoping to learn a lot, but also do some great things in conjunction with them.
That's great, and I see Minister Glenda giving a thumbs up, and I hope you'll be able to do some work with the DEI collab that's part of the NAACP, because that's where all the great elementary school work is happening.
That's perfect.
Thank you so much, Travis, for your report. And if there are no other questions, and welcome, Fikr. So nice to see you. We're going to make a motion to approve the report from Parlando. So we're looking for a motion, a second, and then a vote.
I move to approve the report from Parlando.
I second the motion.
Thank you. And everybody says?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll note for the notes that we got a visual or verbal aye from all of the commissioners. Travis, thank you for your work and for your report. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate your support.
Oh, and Travis, you're welcome to hang on the call with us for as long as you like. And you're also invited to sign off as works for you and your night.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Okay. And then we have our round of fund requests. And at the top of the meeting, or earlier on in our action item, I was a little unclear on how the groups who are collaborating were going to be presenting. So I'm hoping for a little facilitator's help right now, if we can highlight how the groups are planning on presenting together for the fund request, and then we can call up folks appropriately.
Yeah. I'm happy to support with that, Commissioner Lovert. So we have first and foremost Modus Theater grant request presented by Rita Valente Quinn. Then we have Haula Community Organization, request, and the request will be presented by Lohojomoy Lokohonobe. And then we have the NAACP, Second Baptist Church, and Museum of Boulder co-presenting together. And last but not least, we will hear the grant request presented by Michael Sandrock on behalf of One World Running.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Okay. That is helpful that we have everything in order. And Rita, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
There
Hi.
you are. Hello.
Sorry, I couldn't change my name for whatever reason, so I just show up as Modus Theater. But I'm here. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'll go right ahead with the presentation, if that's okay with everyone. Yes, I see the nod. Thank you. So Modus Theater is proposing, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a special arts-based event that is created with 3 goals in mind. 1, to educate the Boulder community about the roots of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s understanding of the intersectional oppression of poverty and race, particularly in the last 5 years of his life. That's from his speech, I Have a Dream, until his assassination, so between 1963 and 1968. The second goal is to help the Boulder community reflect on how the intersectional oppression of poverty and race, which the civil rights movement led by Dr. King Jr. fought to overcome, manifests in the present, particularly in the criminal legal system. And thirdly, inspire the Boulder community to honor Dr. King's Jr. legacy by taking action toward racial justice. The event will be first, Dr. Raylan Rabaka, director of CU Boulder Center for African and African American Studies, will present a critical and hip-hop poetry reflections on Dr. Martin Luther King's Jr.'s work at the nexus of poverty and race. Dr. Rabaka will focus on Dr. King Jr.'s radical thinking in the last 5 years of his life. And by radical, we take the concept of radical from Angela Davis, and from her quote, "Radical simply means grasping things by the root." So Dr. Rabaka will be getting at the root of Dr. King Jr.'s thinking during those last 5 years of his life. Modus will also present a monologue from our Justice Project. The monologue will be presented by Colette Payne, who is also the director of the Women's Justice Institute. And her monologue will illustrate how the exploration of poverty and race at the core of Dr. King Jr.'s thinking manifests in the criminal legal system. Colette Payne's autobiographical monologue opposes the false narrative that her criminal record is about her drug addiction and crime, and demonstrates that her story is actually about poverty, and that, in her words, the story of poverty in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities is directly related to the history of slavery, genocide, Black codes, Jim Crow, and all the redlining laws of the government that pushes us into projects instead of homes in the suburbs, end quote. Finally, the lauded regional and national singing group, The Reminders, will weave musical responses throughout the event by blending their soulful sounds and insightful reflections with calls to uplift
llamadas para levantar el legado del doctor.
Musicians, educators, and social justice leaders, and they will perform musical responses that will energize the audience to embrace the radicalness that is the root of Dr. King Jr.'s legacy and convert it into action. We expect 200 people to attend this event, which will be free and open to the public. And now I would love to hear any questions you may have.
questions for Rita?
I was having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Yeah, there you go, Lindsay. Thanks.
Sorry about that. I forget and use the Zoom controls. Speaker, I'm on audio and video because I'm having an audio issue. Yeah, I was just calling for questions from commissioners, and looks like we have one from Christine. Christine, handing it to you.
Thank you very much. This is actually not a question about the MODIS request. This is actually a process question that I should have asked before MODIS first went. So my apologies. Elizabeth and Ingrid, can you remind us again with the MLK grants what the total amount is, and also how the division works with the Arts Commission and us, just so process-wise, in case questions related to that pop up over the next presentations.
Ingrid,
I can take on. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of those special funds where the HRC has $5,000 that are matched by the Arts and Culture Office with another $5,000. Hence, there's a total of $10,000 to be allocated to MLK Junior celebrations. And I do have the spreadsheet for your deliberation ready.
Great, thank you. And
you're welcome.
Ingrid, can I just ask for clarification? My understanding is that each group, each applicant, each organization could ask for up to 1,000 from the HRC and 1,500 from the BAC. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yes, and that's the request that MODIS is doing because we have an arts component to our project.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. It looks really interesting.
Questions for commissioners?
Well, Rita, we thank you so much for your presentation, and we will move on to the next fund request. Just a few quick reminders before we do. One is a call to speak slowly for our interpreters, which can be difficult to remember to do. The other is just a reminder around timing. Rita, thank you for being for keeping to our 5-minute request, and then we'll usually have a few moments for questions. So next up, we are going to hand it over to Loja Hamoy from the Hiola Community Organization for your request. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to apologize for being late. I just reached home from my work and I apologize for coming late. So first and foremost, I would like to thank all the staff of Human Relations Commission, again for this time, meeting together for Dr. Martin Luther Day celebration. So Hiola Community Organization is now the second time beneficiary of Human Relations Commission and Bola Art Commission. So we're so grateful to be part of this and to be partaking this community Bola County celebration. Precisely, Hiola Community Organization is yearning to be part of Bola Community Initiative and Dr. Martin Luther King Initiative to make sure that we continue the dreams and the love and peace and coexistence with each other in Bola community and around the nation. So our community values community coexistence, peace, and engagement, respect to each and everyone. So basically, we'll try to have performance during that day. We'll have like 3 phases. Phase 1 will be the traditional dancings. We'll present women dance as a sign of peace, as a sign of being in Bola community, celebrating each other and celebrating Dr. Luther King peace. So that's going to be the first phase. Then the second phase is going to be local musician. We have local artists. We have a local Black artist community in our community who are really facing hardship in funding some of their music, some are recording their music and messages of peace and coexistence and inclusivity. They have been having issues. So with this Dr. Luther King grant, will present peace communication with each and every person in Boulder community, because songs and music that are carrying the message of love and coexistence and diversity and inclusion, because each and every person playing part in the role of the community to make sure that we live in a viable community of respect and coexistence. Then the second phase is going to be the choirs from the Black church in our community, in which, Martin Luther King was using church to preach, nonviolent, to preach God, the word, to make sure that we live, we tell our issues in peace, in nonviolence. Because when you have any situation, you have to say that God, may you protect our community. May you protect our leaders within our community. So that is the meaning of the church coming in, our choir, praising songs of love, songs of, celebration together with our brothers and sisters in Bola community. And we will be involving all stakeholders, the members and executive that in Human Relations Commission and Bola Art Commission. So precisely, this is what exactly our community is going to present, and we will welcome each and every person. The staff will send the messages, and we'll also try to go through the media to make sure that all non-profit organizations and partners to join us when that day comes. So I will hold on here. If any question asked, I will be able to answer them, and we go from there. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
And thank you, Loja Hamoy.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate you being here. I already see Christine has her hand up. Pass it to you, Christine.
Thank you very much, Loja Hamoy. It's nice to see you here again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christine.
I have a
You're
quick
welcome.
question. It may be in your written application. If it was, I'm sorry if I missed it. How many people do you think will be engaged with your programming?
We're expecting 80 to 100.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Questions from other commissioners? Hey, Loja Hamoy, thank you so much for being here and for your presentation. Again, I think most of the presenters are familiar with our process. You're welcome to hang out and stay with us for the rest of the presentation and our deliberations, or we will, or staff will follow up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we are going to pass the mic here to our collaborative grant request. So we have NAACP, we've got Second Baptist Church, and we've got the Museum of Boulder. So I'm going to just pass it off to you folks to introduce yourself however you think makes sense with how you've planned on presenting. Mr. Glenda, Graham, Lori, we're so glad you're all here today. Thank you for your presentation. We'll pass it to you.
Okay, hey, I guess I'll take it away. I'm the talker here. I'm the preacher here, I should say. My name is Minister Glenda Strong Robinson. I'm a 42-year resident of Boulder County. I serve as Associate Minister and Historian at Historic Second Baptist Church, Boulder, which is 115 years old on January 8th, 2023. I am historian and executive committee member for the NAACP Boulder County branch. And I'm also currently serving at the museum as their most recent project, Proclaiming Colorado's Black History, as the Oral History Outreach Coordinator or Liaison. The exhibit opened September 29th, 2023, Proclaiming Colorado's Black History. My focus is on proclaiming Boulder County's Black history. I guess my claim to fame is, since we're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, is that I was in the last march with him on March 28, 1968. I was a 19-year-old junior at Memphis State University. And so some of you know that, some of you didn't. Thus, my passion is to tell the story, the real story of how we, along with Dr. King, just marched for basic human rights, basic decency, basic civil rights. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 55 years ago. And to that, I usually pose the question, how are we doing, America? It's a rhetorical question, but I offer the suggestion that while we've come a long, long way from the segregated Jim Crow South that I grew up in Memphis, I say we still have much, much work to do. And thank God for all these fellow people that will be presenting and celebrating his life in this time. So that picture that I'm in is I was in the I Am a Man March, which was March 28, 1968. I was also in the April 8th March of 1968, which was called 4 days after he was assassinated, called the Dr. MLK Jr. Memorial March. And it's in two places in the Smithsonian African American Museum of History and Culture in Washington, D.C. It's in the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. And so I'm a storyteller. We got to tell this story because freedom is not free. Somebody paid for it with human life. For us to be still talking about basic voting rights, I don't mean to preach to everybody, but I'm just thinking we got a lot of work to do. Our program focuses on, let me just give some facts. It'll be Sunday, January 15th, 2023 at 4 p.m. at the Jewish Community Center here in Boulder. And it features Dr. Raylan Rabaka. I understand that someone else will have him presenting. And we will have the Spirituals Choir, the Spirituals Choir from DU at Boulder. It's a group of people who sing a cappella, 55 people, singing nothing but Negro spirituals that will move your soul. I promise you it will. And so we're inviting everybody out. The exciting thing, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up all the time, but to my fellow presenters, I serve at the museum with Emily, who will be presenting, and I also serve with the NAACP with Graham, who will also be presenting. Everybody, if there ever was a time for this community to come together and really become the beloved community, it is now. And so I better stop and let them share with you. So what we've done is we've taken components of the program, and we each will be paying for certain portions of the program. So I'll let Emily and Graham present. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda. As usual, you're a very tough act to follow. But my name is Graham Hill. I'm a lifetime member of this community. And what's most important to me is that we reach harmony in this community, and we're always looking for it. And so I'm very involved with the NAACP on special projects, Criminal Justice Committee, and others. The NAACP Boulder County branch is pleased to collaborate with historic Second Baptist Church and Museum of Boulder so we can present a special program for the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of 2023, as it is keeping with Dr. King's beloved community to work with many people in the community in different organizations. We envision an inclusive community rooted in liberation where all persons can exercise their civil and human rights without discrimination. We are very lucky that this community event will serve as an educational and cultural social tool to heighten the awareness of those that we serve. The MLK 2023 committee has a slogan, and it is in line with the dream: keep hope at the center, with a focus on learning from Dr. King and how to meet the challenges with love, justice, and hope for the beloved community. Let me just add real quickly that the NAACP has done some incredible events over the last few years. We sell out all the events because they're free and they are amazing. So please attend. And I guess I'll hold off because it doesn't sound like others are discussing the individual budgets, but in this collaboration, we are seeking $2,500 towards the support of this event of the MLK weekend, which will be on Sunday, as Glenda pointed out, at the Boulder Jewish Community Center. Thank you for your time.
I'm Emily Zinn. I'm the Director of Education at the Museum of Boulder and the project manager on Proclaiming Colorado's Black History that Minister Glenda referenced. I'm actually representing Lori in the museum tonight, and I do know that on the agenda it has Lori's name. Our portion of this collaboration with Second Baptist Church and NAACP Boulder County is to support the funding of the production of services from Black Cat Video Productions. So together with the Boulder County Martin Luther King Jr. Day Planning Committee, we will be funding the Lifetime Achievement and Living Legend Award interview, which is a centerpiece of the program at the JCC. And every year's honoree has just made a profound impact on the community, and to see them honored and elevated in that way really means a lot. And for this year's, Miss Inez Buggs is moved immensely to be honored. She has impacted countless lives whose lives were changed thanks to the healing they received at Clinica Campesina and through the healthcare providers there. Her story reflects the theme, the dream, hope at the center, and celebrates a story of service and giving. Additionally, Black Cat Video Productions production services will transform the day's live stream into an abridged film of the program that can be accessed on YouTube into the future.
Se puede acceder en YouTube en el futuro.
So proud to support and grow Dr. King's beloved community and promote engagement with this program, which is the community-driven program by longtime leaders of Second Baptist Church and NAACP Boulder County. That's an ongoing celebration that the museum prefers to creating our own programming that might pull community away from those events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your collaborative presentation. And I'm going to pass it to commissioners for questions for any and all of you. Christine.
Thank you very much for this presentations. I saw the Daily Camera article about the Project Black History, and I saw a little picture of Dr. Amy Nelson in there along with you as well. And so I was really happy to see that. And also just wanted to add that I was at the Museum of Boulder with my daughter's field trip class about 2 months ago. And so Emily, I saw you then, and I just thought you all did a terrific job. So I have 2 questions. One, same question I had asked earlier, which is anticipated reach of each of these programs. How I realize with the video, that's a little bit hard to say because that will have, you know, a life long after it's made. But just curious how many people you hope to engage with each of these. And then if I could just ask for some clarification about, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually 3 parties asking for 2 grants. Is that correct?
3.
3 grants. Okay. If you could break that down a little bit, that could be helpful too, so we can understand that.
So each of us is asking for $2,500. And each one is designated, in our budgets, we designated the dollars for specific things. Emily is going to take care of the videographer, not the videographer, we'll have a different videographer, but Black Cat Video Productions will take care of Mrs. Bugs's production, if you will. And she will also take care of live streaming and those things associated with that. So that's one thing. And then NAACP is going to take care of another portion. I think, let's see, I'll just look at Second Baptist.
I can speak to it if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead, Graham.
Okay, sure. So we're, again, requesting 3 line budget items for our $2,500, and that's $300 for security, $1,000 for our featured honorarium speaker, which is Dr. Relan Rabaka, and then $1,200 for the JCC facility. The question came up, how many people do we expect? I think we're going to sell the house out, so I think it holds 500. So we don't want to turn anybody away. I don't think in this case that'd be a good problem to have. I don't know about the Boulder Police Department or Fire Department allowing for more people, but as I mentioned in my remarks, we did this a wonderful program a couple years ago at Mackey Auditorium, which holds, I believe, 1,100 folks, 2,000, and that was sold out. So again, when I say sold out, we don't charge the public for any of these events, And they're wonderful because a lot of them are based out of a different region in the United States. So Boulder County gets a real treat with seeing this kind of entertainment.
And then this year's events, the January events on YouTube received around 500 views, in addition to a sold out, the Graham Theater at the Dairy. So their largest theater. And then we funded the Juneteenth films that were featured that day. And they are split up, and so you can watch the whole thing or pieces. It's a little harder to quantify, but again, many hundreds of views on top of the people who were present on the day. I also don't know if there will be a question to this end, but I do want to point out that Katrina Miller and Black Cat Productions are driving a lot of the transformative race conversations in this community, especially that are bringing in people from a variety of backgrounds that maybe haven't engaged in race conversations previously. And she often works for free. And so when she does screenings and when she does talkbacks, a lot of times it is unpaid or for very, very minimal speaker fees. And so hence the request for the full amount for her art.
Yeah, she's been here before, and we gave a grant to her film. So sorry, if I can just get clarity again, it's 3 organizations and 3 grant requests. Okay, correct. I feel like I'm missing something, and maybe that's just okay. There's the event at the JCC.
One event.
3
teamed up: the Museum of Boulder, the NAACP Boulder County, and Second Baptist Church of Boulder.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the 3 grants are for video, security, and speakers. Is that correct?
Well, okay. For NAACP, as Graham said, for the keynote speaker, space expenses at the JCC, and security.
That's one grant.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's one request.
That's one request.
Okay, got that.
And then Second Baptist Church, I'll be paying for the Spirituals Project, which is the musical group that's coming.
Got it.
Okay. The equipment, which is $800, and the transportation from DU to Boulder. We got to get a bus, and from Boulder back to DU. And then the museum, of course, is paying for Katrina.
Okay. Understand. Thank you very much. I was very confused.
I'm sorry. We're sorry for the confusion. Don't want that.
Thanks for those questions, Christine, and for those clarifications. I'm curious, can we zoom in a little bit more on with the Black Cat Productions, the video production? That's so it sounds like there's like some amount of money in there for like technical video production. And then also like an honorarium is kind of also inside of that amount. Can you clarify, Emily?
The entire amount is for the technical video production that includes the interview, which has already been filmed actually this morning with Missy Nicebuggs, and then it was a 2-hour interview that's going to be 7 minutes long. So trimming that down and making it lively and very watchable. And then that is paired with the technical production from Black Cat to take the film of the live stream and make it more like a 1 hour video on YouTube. Is 1 hour about right, Mr. Glenda?
I think so. It'll be like essentially a documentary there that can be used as well. It's all historical, so it's historical documentation of her 30 plus years at, and she's one of the founding members of Clinica Campesina. And Katrina was actually, we found out today in the interview, Katrina was actually serviced by them when she was a student and a young mother and all. Anyhow, it's a great story. I don't want to tell the story, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the clarity. I really appreciate that. Other questions from commissioners?
No, para mí creo que está claro.
No, for me, it's all clear.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, well then we will get into our last fund request, which is from Michael at One World Running. Hand it to you.
Thank you,
And
Lindsay.
just a reminder.
Ingrid. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Ingrid. Really appreciate everyone's doing such a lovely job at speaking slowly for the interpreters. Just want to express appreciation and give that reminder. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Jerome, I sent you a message. I would like to know if you are here on behalf of One World Running. Otherwise, because I do not see Michael on the call, and he has not communicated to me that he was not attending, but he's not here. Jerome, can you please unmute or post something in the chat?
No, I'm not here. I'm not here on representing One World Running.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So, Lindsay, with that, I think we can just go ahead and move on.
Into the deliberations. Thank you, Ingrid, for clarifying that. And thank you, Minister Glenda. Okay, I will pass kind of the screen, the visual control over to Ingrid, who has a spreadsheet all queued up that is always so helpful for us to bring our conversation into context and relevance here. So we have, thank you, Ingrid. And as Ingrid pointed to before, we have $5,000 to allocate on behalf of HRC, $5,000 on behalf of the Arts Commission. But before we get into that, I believe we have Lauren. Lauren, I think you wanted to share about the funding opportunities available to the funding opportunities available from the Arts Commission. So I'm going to hand it over to you while we're getting all prepared for our funding deliberations.
Sure, and I do not envy you. You've reached a point where things are, where you have so much good programming to look forward to. I've been messaging with Ingrid, and thank you so much for letting me butt in here. But the Boulder Arts Commission grants are for 2023, the program is now open to review. And I would recommend, depending for this and for your other programs, looking at our funding, in particular, the venue and online event affordability funds. For example, hiring Katrina to make the film would be covered. You could apply to cover that. And they're first come, first serve starting January 1st. It's all on boulderarts.org. I'll put the link in when I'm done talking, but we do also have an info funding session coming up where I've invited members of the county-wide, statewide, other funders from around Colorado really to come and talk about other funding opportunities that you might be eligible for, so other grants. Also, finally, there are a couple other grants that I have in mind. I will just post all the stuff into the chat since it looks like it's open. And please feel free to ask Ingrid or ask anybody for my email if you want me to send you anything in particular, because I do think you all have really strong programs, and I think there are other funding opportunities for you to look at while you're organizing things for this event and for the future. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Lauren. And do you mind introducing yourself? You are our beloved co-worker. So it will be great if you can introduce yourself and close that out.
Sure. Oh, sure. My name is Lauren Click, she, her, and I'm with the City of Boulder Office of Arts and Culture. I run our grant programs. I think I've actually spoken to many of you about grants and other things. It's nice to see all of you. We partner, as they've mentioned, we offer some sponsorship funds for HRC programs because they're so wonderful and strong. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're all doing next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. So
thanks so much, Lauren.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. Give me just one moment. And there you go.
In the meantime, may I just ask one quick question? Are there any, I can't remember because I feel like maybe we've run into this before, but are there any parameters or restrictions for One World Running because they weren't here for the presentation? Or are they, because of their written application, considered in the same standing as everyone else?
My understanding would be they have the same standing as everyone else.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, they did submit their application on time.
Okay, thanks.
Are you all able to look at the spreadsheet?
I can see it, Ingrid.
Oh, wonderful.
Me too.
Okay, so while Ingrid, thank you for pulling that up. So to kind of frame this conversation, we cannot fully fund all of the requests. We have a total of 15,000 requested, and then we have a total of 10,000 that we can award. So some difficult decisions to make because all really exciting projects.
I'll just weigh in with one suggestion, which is just for the sake of discussion. I think it might be easier if we treat the 3 grant applications from the collaboration as one large grant application, and whatever amount we end up deciding for the entire collaboration, those organizations can then decide how they want to divvy that up, whatever the number ends up being. I think that just might make it easier to have this discussion.
I find that easier to wrap my brain around.
I think that's a good idea, Christine.
And then I'll also just add one thing, which is, if I recall right from the One World Running application, you know, the question that I was asking, you heard me ask everyone tonight, was sort of the reach that they expected to have. And I believe the One World Running reach, they were expecting to engage 100 to 200 people, if I remember right. Maybe I'll take a moment and double check that while we're discussing.
Thanks, Christine. I think, you know, one thing that I find really helpful is to center the conversation around the priorities that we set when we revised the funding structure most recently. And Christine, you were really leading that up. So I wonder if I can pass, if I can like pass the virtual mic to you to center us around like what we were hoping to see in funding to move the funding deliberation conversation forward. And if you want, I can look for the reach number for One World Running.
Sure. That would be great. Then I don't have to do two things at the same time. That would be helpful. Thank you. Yeah. So when we revised our application process, I guess it was about a year ago. I think, you know, we had sort of reframed the application with an eye towards I think previously our grants were oriented towards celebrating multiculturalism. A lot of the grants that we were given were actually given towards arts and celebration events. I do think this is a little bit different because this is specifically the MLK fund and not the general Human Relations Fund. But I do think that the lens through which we were looking at are ones in which issues of equity would be highlighted, not just diversity. And then we had also sort of discussed trying to bring in organizations that may not have heard of our grants before, although I believe, with the exception of One World Running, I'm not sure about them. I think that you know, every other organization here has received grants from us before, so that wouldn't actually be relevant to this discussion. But that's the general gist. JH and Lindsay, do you have? I'm afraid I did not do a very good job capturing the conversation we had at the beginning of this year, but JH and Lindsay, if you have anything to add, or Ingrid and Elizabeth, that would be helpful.
I put you on the spot too, so thank you for calling up what you remember, Christine. I did find the reach number while you were speaking. 100 participants and twice as many spectators was what was in the application.
And it might be helpful just for the other commissioners really quickly to just summarize what the event was. It was a run aimed at youth, I believe, coupled along with an arts presentation.
That is correct, if I may. So it's, I believe it's a short run in town, and then it wraps up with an event, an arts event where kids and youth are invited to come to this art gallery that is actually owned by a local African-American business owner who would like to host it. And they will supply with art supplies and refreshments after the run and the art activity. And the gallery is located downtown.
Thank you, Ingrid, for bringing that into context for us. And thanks for the call for that, Christine. I think that was really helpful. We have a few threads here. Thank you, Ingrid, Christine, for the context for One World Running. And the other thread is the funding criteria. And again, I kind of put Christine on the spot there, but while Ingrid was explaining the One World Running event to us, I had a moment to look up our criteria so I could add on to what Christine said. Projects that have projects that reinforce the goals of respect for diversity, inclusivity, and equity. Activities that are free of charge and open to the public, projects that are community-led, collaborations with other organizations, diversity among planners and decision makers, inclusivity among participants, access to people with disabilities, projects or activities that provide opportunities for communities that experience marginalization, activities that advance the ongoing and annual priorities of the Human Relations Commission, ability or inability to access multiple sources of funding, projects that have not received prior funding from the HRC, and the extent to which the project or activity might engage and educate the larger community. So adding that on as context. And I'm curious, Christine, if we could dig a little bit deeper into your suggestion around considering the three organizations collaborating on the one event as one, considering that as one request.
Sure. Did you have a specific question about that?
Yeah. I'm looking really, I guess, for, I mean, ultimately we want suggestions for funding amounts or percentages. So that's ultimately my question. So really I'm looking, I think, for a proposal just for a place to begin conversation from. And it can be difficult to throw out funding amounts when we don't have enough funding to fully fund every group. I'm also just entertaining some suggestions in the chat while I'm trying to facilitate the meeting. So I'm also kind of just trying to pass to somebody so I can have a moment to take in information while I'm not putting it out there.
Why don't we just review the numbers quickly? So we have a total of 10,000 to disperse. We currently have a total of 15,000 in total requests. Half of the 15,000 is being requested from the collaboration between Second Baptist Church, NAACP, and Museum of Boulder. The other half are the smaller grant requests for Modus, Howla, and One World Running.
May I correct you? Actually, it is.
I'm wrong.
The Museum of Boulder, NAACP, and Second Baptist Church accounts for more than half of the funding because each one of them is requesting for $2,500.
Sorry, I meant half of the total requests.
Oh, okay.
So the requests are 1,500.
Right.
Or sorry, 15,000, and then 50% of that, of the total requests, not the amount that we actually have to grant. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if we were to do a straight up proportionate distribution, it would be half for the collaboration and then the other half divided evenly amongst the other three. If we're Lindsay, if you were looking for numbers as a starting point, I would suggest that we do more than half for the collaboration between Second Baptist Church, NAACP, and Museum of Boulder. And my reasoning for that is because the scope of what they are proposing altogether is both a wide scope in terms of the number of people they will reach. And given that they are holding the event at the JCC, I think they'll also have the additional publicity engine of the JCC behind them to really, publicize the event. And because the content that they're proposing to put on, I feel is very on point for the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I would suggest that we allocate 6,000 towards the collaboration, and then the remaining 4,000 we would then want to figure out how to distribute amongst the other organizations. So that would be my starting proposal.
Thanks, Christine. It is really helpful just to have some numbers to start from. I think it really brings things into context and relevance. So I like that suggestion to because that is like based in one of our funding criteria to consider like the impact on like the scope and the number of the people in the community who will be reached by the event. I'd like to put in a plug for, or I'd like to highlight the criteria that we have around supporting the organizations that might have like fewer sources of potential funding or like less established access to funding as well as something that's important to us in like playing around with or adjusting the numbers. So if so Christine, your suggestion was to begin with awarding more than half of the funding to the collaboration between Second Baptist Church, NAACP, the Museum of Boulder. First question, am I understanding that right?
Yes. The numbers that Ingrid put in there reflect what I was suggesting where we start discussion.
Awesome, thank you. And then what if, as another place to begin with and work from, we applied the same suggestion at least to Haola Community Organization and One World Running, who I understand may have less potential sources of funding. And I would like to highlight that that's kind of just like my own assumption, but it is one of our criteria. So I'm going to put it out there as my assumption as part of the conversation. We don't have really like a way, like acknowledge that we don't really have a way to make that clear in the application. So it's just an invitation to point out if I'm wrong. I misunderstand in my assumptions.
I have a quick question here. It's hard because One World Running isn't here, and you know, the questions that we would have about their application, they're not here to answer them, which makes this challenging. So one question of clarification, which is, I believe looking at their application, they did not request 1,500. I see 1,400. So someone can check me on that.
Collectively, it's a $2,400 request.
Oh, sorry, 24. Not I meant 24, not 25. So their request is actually let me see. They filled it in as 1,000 from the HRC and 1,400 from the Arts Commission. I don't know if we have those columns flipped, but I guess it doesn't matter. And then it's not clear to me if they've received a grant from the HRC before.
I don't believe they have.
They have not.
Is that right, Ingrid?
Correct. They have not.
And then I guess another question I have is that they're saying that in their application that no street closures would be necessary on their course. So I don't, because it would be on Pearl Street in front of the courthouse. But from a city perspective, you know, is there any permitting involved? Also, we don't know the answer to questions of how they're going to engage children to sign up for this. And how they'll do outreach to the community. We just don't have answers to those questions at all.
Yeah, I hear that concern, Christine. And I think we could go like,
I think they highlight in their application that they would promote through running community, the running community, running stores, and then they would advertise on the Daily Camera and Boulder Weekly.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There are, just to say, obviously not responding to the organization, that there are permits. The application does say that they are familiar with the permitting process, but correct that there's not more detail there.
Okay. So I'll just add one thing, Lindsay. I think the way you're looking at this makes a lot of sense to me. But I also just do want to add that, you know, with One World Running not here to answer questions, I want to make sure that the other organizations who are here to answer questions, you know, we have a fuller picture of what they're proposing. So that should be taken into consideration too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we could, you know, like, does it make sense to you, Christine, to like adjust funding for that, or to like fund pending follow-up?
If I'm not mistaken, I think we are not going to be having a December meeting. Is that correct? So these events will
correct at the moment.
These events will all happen before we meet again. So my inclination would be to adjust funding based on what we know now and not revisit. Any of the other commissioners want to weigh in with some suggestions?
Sí, pero yo viendo.
Yes. Looking at what we have already, what I see right now, it's fine. But we don't want One World Running. Why don't we give them $1,000 and the other 3,000 distribute them between Motus Theater and Jaula Community Organization? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's a sorry. I think it's a good place to work from.
Yo creo, Ingrid, que ahí sería 750, 750.
I think Ingrid would be 750, 750, 750.
Para Motus Theater y Jaula Community.
For Motus Theater and Jaula Community, that would be 1,500.
May I just ask a quick question, Lauren? I don't know if this is a question you're able to answer here and now, but of these proposals that you've seen, which ones of them would be eligible to apply for additional funding from the Arts Commission?
Oh, sure. So I think that it depends. So a lot of our grants, the deadlines are a little bit after this event, but we do have this venue and online affordability fund. So that would help pay for, say, the rental of the JCC for sure, and to pay Katrina, as I mentioned. And so they could apply separately for those two. Otherwise, I mean, really all of these, if they're renting a space, they would be able to apply for that fund. It's first come, first serve, and it opens January 1st. And it's a very simple application. So I highly recommend it for everybody. So I think really quite a few of them would have access to that one, but really the other grants wouldn't cover these programs except for like our community project grants or arts education grants, but the deadlines are after the events. So they would be applying for events in 2024.
Okay. And for this very simple application that you're mentioning, is there sufficient funding to cover some of the gaps between what we would not be able to fund today and what they're requesting?
Yes, so you can apply for up to $1,000, and that has to be 50% of the max, or 50% of your fee or more. So for example, if you're paying Katrina $2,500, you could apply for the full $1,000. So I think that would accommodate at least a few of these events that are paying. I'm not sure how much like Modus is paying for their performance space, but we have in that fund, we have $16,000 right now. So it could certainly be used up very quickly, and it usually is. So just a note for any of our grant applicants.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just put out an idea here. And Rita, please correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe it's about a $900 fee for space rental for Modus. I would say that, sorry, Ingrid, could we see the spreadsheet again?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Rita is not here any longer.
Oh, she's not, okay. So I believe it was 900 for their space rental. I mean, I would probably say that Modus, Museum of Boulder, NAACP have the ability and the time to put in that application in January for additional funding from the Arts Commission through this these online venue and online event affordability funds. You know, there's 6 weeks between now and MLK Junior, so we might want to consider making adjustments there. Sorry, I need to go off camera for just 1 minute.
Thank you, Christine. So the suggestion is to adjust for those, to adjust the funded amounts for the less the space costs. So that impacts the Modus request and then our collaborative event. Am I understanding that right?
Nope. I was just gonna say, I think that's what you were saying, Christine.
Yes.
Cool. And then Christine, you said that it was $900 for the Modus?
Let's see. Space rental, Gordon Gam Theater rental, $908 is their projected expense for space.
And then for the collaborative proposal? So they could receive, thank you for clarifying that, Lauren, so they could receive half of the 908 from the Arts Commission Fund.
So on the collaborative, we had NAACP to pay for the space expenses of $1,200. In our
so
budget.
That's held by the. Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies.
Sorry. On the budget table. Remember, I said each one of us would be responsible for a financial obligation, and so that was assigned to the NAACP, and that's $1,200 that we had assigned there. I don't know if that confuses the issue anymore, but
I think that's helpful, Minister Glenda. And I think, you know, there was an earlier suggestion to consider those requests. The request from the three organizations, the NAACP, Second Baptist, and the museum as one request, right? So like,
okay.
I think that might help folks wrap their minds around how that modification might impact the funding.
Okay.
So Lindsay, if you can give me 1 minute, I'm just going to do some math here, and then I'll make another suggestion.
Thanks, Christine.
If you need my calculator skills, I have it open and ready for you all.
You've got mad Excel skills, which I do not have. Okay. All right. So I'm going to suggest we go to given what we've learned here from Lauren, 5,500 for the collaboration, assuming that they'll be able to make up some of that difference from the arts fund. 2,000 total for Howla. Uh, 1,500 for Modus, and 1,000 for One World, in part because I'm afraid we just don't have enough information.
Thank you, Christine, for the proposal, and thanks, Ingrid, for putting all of it in the spreadsheet. It is the thing that makes it real for me. We'll give commissioners a moment just to review.
I think the collaboration, it sounds like they might be able to apply for more than one, because they have the venue at the JCC as well as possible funds for video. So it wouldn't even just be the event venue.
You mean it wouldn't just be the additional funding they could receive for the event, Christine? Is that's
for the event venue? It could also be additional funding for Black Hat.
suggestions from other commissioners to modify what Christine has suggested?
Not on my end. I think this is a great suggestion. It took into consideration all of the priorities that we've talked about and what groups can get extra funding elsewhere. So I think this is really good, Christine. Thanks for breaking it up and kind of guiding us.
I agree. Thank you, Fikr. Christine, thank you for giving us some figures to consider. I'm just going to give another few moments here for other commissioners to jump in with any other modifications. It's a lot to absorb. If there's nothing to add, we'll look for a motion, a second, and then put that motion to a vote.
Una pregunta.
A question. The Museum of Boulder says that it's going to produce a video. Would they have the opportunity to apply for different fundings or funds from other people or other organizations?
Is that a question to us or to commissioners?
No sé si los comisionados pueden contestar esta pregunta.
I don't know if commissioners can answer this question, or even yourselves as the Museum of Boulder, or maybe Lauren, if you may have an answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, the Museum of Boulder funds Katrina Miller in her many pursuits, including this one, and intend to pay her equitably for this production, and would seek alternative funding sources if based on what we would receive here.
Thanks, Emily. Lauren, anything to add? Or to clarify, we just have so many. I think this, or like highlight from what you've told us already, it's just a lot of numbers kicking around in our minds.
No, and I think you've done a good job at talking through everything. There's so many pressures for it, and however it works out, it's going to be a really fun celebration and educational.
Thank you.
Pues entonces yo creo que viéndolo desde esta perspectiva, yo creo
Well, looking at it from this perspective, I think it's all right now. I don't know what the other commissioners think.
I think it's just a matter of if anyone else has any questions or discussion, we should do that now. But if not, then maybe somebody can make a motion.
Yeah, I agree. I feel conflicted, as I always do when we don't have enough funds to make a full request. I agree with Christine about where we are.
También estoy de acuerdo contigo,
I
Lindsay,
agree with you, Lindsay, that yes, that we cannot give everything there that it's been requested from us, but you know, as they say, something is something.
Agree. As newer commissioners haven't done so many of these more complicated funding proposals. The way one makes a motion is to read all of the specific amounts by organization. So the person who makes the initial motion funds or just reads each of the funding amounts by organization as part of the proposal. Because I'm hearing no more conversation, no more questions. So thinking we might be ready to make a motion. I always avoid doing that because traditionally as the facilitator, one doesn't, but just want to explicitly invite folks to do that. So
quizás los que tienen más experiencia como Cristina, como
maybe those that have more experience like JH or Christine.
I would be happy to make the motion. Ingrid and Elizabeth, do I need to also read out the breakdown with HRC and arts, or can I just give the totals?
I think you can give the totals and just refer to the spreadsheet.
Okay. I'm gonna we have $1 to spare, so I'm going to just put it on the top item there. So I move that we grant 1,844 to Second Baptist Church, 1,833 to the NAACP, 1,500 to Modus, 2,000 to Howla Community Organization, 1,833 to Museum of Boulder, 1,000 to One World Running, and also that the total funds for Second Baptist Church, NAACP, and Museum of Boulder, that the total amount of 5,500 for those organizations, that those organizations decide how they will allocate those funds. Is there a second?
I second that.
And I'll say. Thank you. And then JC. Okay. All right. The ayes. We'll just note for the notes that everybody gave either audio or visual. Yes. Affirmative.
Great. And I just want to thank all the applicants again for coming. I know these meetings can be long and protracted, and we really appreciate what you're doing, and we're really looking forward to hearing about your events after January.
I agree. Thank you so much for the work that you do in the community every day. And thank you so much for the work that you're proposing to do as part of the event series. We really appreciate you and wish that we could fully fund your request. And thank you so much for being here for our meeting tonight. And thanks to you, Lauren, for sharing the future funding opportunities. I'm excited for the possibilities there. Thanks for being here. And Christine, thanks for giving us a starting point for the conversation. I think that's really helpful, and for bringing it into context with the criteria that we've set in the past in your work on that. Appreciation for you. Thank you, Minister Glenda. All right. So for again, and also for all of the applicants tonight, thanks for being here. Staff will follow up with all of the logistical items and technicalities. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. And you're welcome to say goodnight to us and leave us to the rest of the agenda. Again, we really appreciate you for being here. And while those folks transition to either hanging on or signing off, I got the call in the chat for a little bio break. So let's take a break until 8:30. See you back at 8:30.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Hello, everyone. As you're coming back, if you can come on camera or give some other indication that you are here and maybe not completely ready to come back on camera.
Hi.
The JH. Hi, JH. I see that you've unmuted yourself. Thank you for coming back. And
Here.
we're all here. Thank you, Fikr. Nice to see you. All right. So coming back into our agenda, we're going to loop back to what's original item 4 on our original agenda action item A, 4A on the original, the protected class forum proposal. So before we ran out of time for that item and wanted to give that time to the guests, we had proposed hosting a forum for to better understand this protected class concern that we've had on, not on our work plan certainly, but like on our minds for much of this year. So that proposal was to host this forum in February of 2023 and to invite a variety of groups, both from the city and then external to the city, in order to better inform us about that, so we could make a decision about if we want to continue exploring the protected homelessness as a protected class. So yeah, just the scope of that forum will be to better understand the issues so we can make a decision. Part of that proposal is that 1 to 2 commissioners need to work with staff to work out logistics and invitations to those groups who will be joining the forum. Anything I missed in that looping back summary?
I think you got it. So I think just like either affirmation or kind of friendly recommendations to the proposal. And then if affirmation, just names of people who will follow up with Ingrid and I, or who Ingrid and I can follow up with, just to make logistical arrangements.
Thank you. Well, so the first thing we're looking for is affirmation. And we have this on our action items. So this is a formal proposal requiring a vote. I kind of just made a motion. Elizabeth earlier had the motion on the screen for those of us who are more visual information takers. I think I'm going to kind of like circumvent my own protocol and make a proposal because I feel like I'm the person who has the best understanding of what I'm suggesting here. So the proposal is in February of 2023, and I'm making a motion for this proposal. In February of 2023, the HRC will host a forum with city staff and community groups representatives external to the city for the purposes of better informing the HRC around the homelessness as a protected class within the Human Rights Ordinance. In order to make that happen, at least one of us has to work with staff on logistics. I wonder if I can get a second.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Christine. And then we are looking for a vote. What do you all say?
Aye.
And then JH, just looking to hear from you. Okay, JH, I'm going to put a pin in your vote and circle back to you because we still have this other concern about working with staff on the logistics about who to invite and inviting those groups. Is anybody willing to participate with staff in those logistics? And actually, Elizabeth, I have a clarifying question with this. It seems like is the responsibility split here? It seems like staff are pretty connected to other staff and would have the best sense of like the staff who are appropriate to invite. Is staff kind of taking point on that part, and then taking point on invitations to other staff, and then commissioners work with external groups?
I think it could be a combination. It's really up to you, right? Not looking to overstep at all, but just knowing how things go with event planning. You ask one person, they can or can't. Are you going to wait or make that conditional on asking the next people, or is there a slate? You know, just thinking about the combination of folks. So I think we could go at it a bunch of different ways, but just simply, you know, we're kind of here. This is our work. It's not your work during the daytime hours. And so sometimes there are also efficiencies, things that we might be able to help with regardless of who you might
Podemos ayudar.
So it's
no obstante de quien quieren.
I would just suggest treating it as, you know, how can we work together to help support you in making happen what you want to happen in an efficient way, whatever that might look like.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth, for clarifying that. Anybody interested in working with staff on this?
Can I volunteer like in a half capacity? Like if you're asking for 1 to 2 people, I feel like I could maybe be worth half a person. I'm pretty capacity constrained, but I'm also very interested in this topic, and I would like to, you know, do some research and maybe directionally try and suggest some possibilities of speakers we could bring in, but I don't think I will be able to actually work on any kind of logistics.
I think that could work. Yeah, it's not our role to just kind of make decisions on behalf of the HRC, but just having that guidance, being able to, you know, be a sounding board if you need us for that. And then again, just being able to help just follow through on your suggestions and recommendations for whom and how.
And I'm in a similar place as you, Christine. Interested, very like low capacity, like you know, a fraction of a person's full person, fraction of a person's capacity. I would love to contribute as one of the 2 full people contributing parts of their capacity. I think one thing that I could offer is bringing, you know, like making a request, like crafting a request and actually making the request to groups once your research informs who we should ask. So it sounds like together we've got a full resourced person between us.
A full person.
And maybe we need another half to a full person.
Yeah, there's definitely room for.
I think for what it's worth, I think that if the two of you can, I think that's probably totally doable. And if others want to weigh in, there's also opportunities to, get input by email, like lots of things that wouldn't need to necessarily be a burden, right, on other folks either.
Yo puedo apoyar también.
I could also support as well.
Siempre y cuando no me lleve mucho tiempo.
As long as I've got the time.
So I think collectively we have what we need then.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Christine. I'm excited to work with you all. And then JH, are you able to join us? Not necessarily in the group, but can you come off of mute? JH, I see you came off of mute, but I can't hear you. But I am in a definitely not ideal
Can you hear me
audio
now?
setup.
I did.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Gosh. Let me see. This thing doesn't work. Let me find a good.
We can also see if it's easier, JH, to get a message in the chat or a thumbs up or some other way.
Hey, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's hard to get it. I have to call my son to help me. You can see it. Come on.
I'll go to more.
Thanks, JH.
Thank you. How do you do it, John?
I'm pretty sure try going to more.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, JH. And thanks, Elizabeth, for that suggestion.
What do we do now?
So I think
do we
we're
still have
good.
you?
Oh, okay.
Working out the tech. Okay, I think we're good. So we've got, next we're moving into our discussion and informational items, which contain a whole bunch of staff updates. So we're handing it over to staff.
Thank you. Even though there are several different items on the list, we'll try to move through fairly swiftly. My name is Elizabeth Crow. I realize I did not introduce myself at the top of the hour, at the top of the 6 o'clock hour, that is. But Deputy Director for our City Boulder Housing Human Services. So let me screen share again, just a brief PowerPoint to get to, let's see. I don't know why I can't share. Well, let's see. It's not giving me the window option. Let me try this and see if it works.
Please let me know how can I be of assistance, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's just giving me the option to share my entire screen, like not the PowerPoint, which is very strange. I've never had that problem before. So I'm just getting rid of a bunch of stuff on my desktop. which is always way too crowded. And then I should be able to share, or at least we'll try. Can you all see that?
We can, and we respect your privacy.
Okay, yeah, because I can't see you at all right now, so I'm just going to make it really big. Okay, so a few things, starting off with the Human Relations Fund. So given this process is fresh on your mind, recalling that we've been working on a strategy, a plan to help kind of get the guts of the funding program responsibilities kind of off of the shoulders of the Human Relations Commission and restructure it in such a way that we're really maintaining the purpose, that we are really upholding the values and considerations that make this funding source such a really meaningful part of what the city can offer and what the community really needs and benefits from. And at the last meeting in October, we shared with you some of the survey responses that we received from grantees and have been thinking as staff about how to bring back to you some recommendations for how to move forward with the program. So what we wanted to take to you tonight is a more specific proposal for how we would approach this kind of restructured Human Relations Fund. And the first thing we looked at was, based on survey responses, thinking about other ways in which we manage funding programs within the Housing Human Services Department. One option to help really streamline the process, we think, and we hope, will be to just establish 2 deadlines per year. That can be a deadline for events like MLK Day, Juneteenth, Indigenous Peoples Day, as well as funding of other programs that don't fit into those kind of event celebration categories. And we would look at the kind of the primary deadline, at least the first next one that would come up, being March, to accept proposals for any kind of event or happening that's taking place June through November. That's the vast majority of events that the Human Relations Fund has been funding, which include Juneteenth, Pride Month, Immigrant Heritage Month, other events like that. When we look back at the last several years and see when are we getting requests coming in and what are they for. We would also add in another deadline in sometime in the fall, possibly in September, for those events that are taking place December through May. And if we need to kind of issue some type of invitation only deadline to get us through this period of time we're in right now, which is that we've just made the MLK Day event awards. Typically, there are a small handful of other events that take place in the first several months of the year. So we would work that out. Again, the goal being we're not disenfranchising anyone who has been receiving funds from the Human Relations Fund for an event that takes place in that time frame. We would try to make the applications available at least a couple of months ahead of a deadline so that organizations do have plenty of time to plan. And we would make them available as well as having one-on-one meetings with staff, which we highly encourage for all of our other funding programs, to just discuss ideas, clarify eligibility and requirements. So the second element for the application process, recall that in the survey we sent out, we were asking our grantees, current grantees in past years, if they have strong opinions as to whether or not they prefer to submit a document that they would write up as Word or a PDF and then submit it by email, or if they would prefer a grant management system, just an online application. And the vast majority really preferred an online system. And thankfully, we already have that. We can make that available in English and Spanish so that grantees or applicants rather can request funding in the language of their choice. And obviously, as we do with our other funding programs, have a grant specialist who can provide technical assistance in use of that application process. So moving to the next kind of element of this restructure, in terms of decision-making process, it would no longer be the HRC as a body, but we do think that it would benefit from a very small funding advisory committee, which would review and make recommendations for funding. And it could be comprised of HHS staff member like the Ingrid or person in that role. It could potentially include someone from Office of Arts and Culture, knowing they are still planning on making some of their funding available to add to the overall capacity of the fund. It would be great if there is an HRC member who would like to be on that committee. And then we could also recruit 1 to 2 other community members that represent populations that would tend to benefit and which we want to benefit from Human Relations Fund. And then in terms of eligibility and other criteria, we would suggest for the moment that we keep the eligibility guidelines and kind of prioritization criteria the same so that we're able to ease into this structure. However, moving forward, it could be this funding advisory committee that could make recommendations for any changes. So if there were to be any kind of prioritization based on organizational structure, on a total budget amount, the kind of amounts of money that might be available per application or per event, combination of any of those things, that's the group that would make recommendations, just making sure that we kind of keep that North Star of really wanting to benefit organizations that are led by the community members they're primarily serving, and other such criteria. And then in terms of reporting and evaluation, we would likely not require organizations to present in person, either to make a request or to report. It can be very valuable, we know that it is, but it's also a lot of time for them. And is not something that we tend to have happen for other funding programs. It doesn't mean we couldn't, but the responses that we got back from our grantees are that they really, some really would prefer not to have to present in addition to providing a written request and report. And we have some really easy templates, the Arts and Culture Commission does, where we can be sure to we're really getting meaningful feedback from the grantees about their work and the impact without making it an onerous process. And then as a whole, we would also want to just create a brief annual funding report that just itemizes the funding that the Human Relations Fund has provided overall for that public transparency. So that's in a nutshell what we're proposing. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all and just ask if you have any thoughts or comments. How does this sound? Do these specific suggestions feel like we are honoring the intent and the spirit of what the Human Relations Fund has been for these many years with the HRC making decisions, or do you have any concerns or anything else we should take into account? Christine.
I've got just a couple points I wanted to raise. Maybe they're questions. I'm not exactly sure. I'll just start talking and we'll find out. I guess the first question is would we be able to build in as part of this some way of looping back to the full HRC, maybe twice a year, just so we have visibility into where these funds are going and sort of understanding
absolutely
in aggregate what's going on? Great. Super. That's easy. And then the second question I had was, you know, with the small advisory committee, sort of pulling in the 1 to 2 community members that are potentially representative of organizations that would be receiving funds. What does that look like? And part of the reason I raise this question is, you know, there are a lot of very diverse groups who come to us, and for any of them to sort of represent in aggregate many groups with many different interests, like what is that going to look like?
Sure. So the suggestion isn't necessarily that we would get organizational representatives. In fact, it's often better if we get, we've experienced this in our other committees, individuals who represent kind of populations or perspectives or experiences in the community, but that are not very directly, like not a staff or board member for an organization that's likely to be applying for funding. That can just create a conflict of interest that's better to avoid. But what we do for other funding committees, and is generally pretty common, is just accept applications for, do you want to be on this committee? You know, kind of establish some very simple terms and guidelines, and make that available for a period of time for people to apply.
And
is that helpful, Christine?
It is. And then how are those people selected then?
Sure. So the way we select committee members for other funding committees is people apply, staff are responsible for kind of interviewing, for, you know, kind of looking for qualifications, which again are focus on many of the same qualities I think HRC members would also want to see, including lived experience, a broad range of perspectives, some kind of knowledge, right, about and background in organizing, event planning, cultural celebrations. That is to say, some experience or perspective about the work that they'd be helping decide to fund. And ultimately, it's the city manager that just approves committee members as they're recommended. It doesn't, these are committees, not boards or commissions. So no need for, you know, kind of applications that would go to city council or something like that.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Lindsay?
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. I just want to express a lot of appreciation for like the thoughtfulness and like reaching out to all of the grantees and gathering that feedback. And I think it's a really thoughtful proposal. I don't have a specific suggestion, but I'm really excited about like the different possibilities for having like a block of time for the funding organizations. You know, like one thing I'm thinking of is like, oh, what could these like relationships look like? Or what could like a block of time for a group to have a connection with the HRC, or like a connection with the HRC for these funded groups look like? Because, you know, I've heard like, you know, for us, it's important to maintain the relationship, but if we're not really so like, you know, inside of this funding process, I'm curious how the relationship between the HRC and the grantees could be leveraged. I don't know, like one thing that popped into my mind is like, if there's a space in meetings irregularly where like we could hear from a group about their work and issues that are impacting their work for like 10 to 15 minutes, like once a year, and they don't have to like be waiting through other parts of our meeting or like hearing from other groups. And that could just be a more like valuable time for us to like interact and hear from them. For example, I wish I could have like a more specific suggestion, but I just like find it exciting to think about. And thanks again.
Well, thank you. And that's such a great idea. I mean, we, as many of you know, again, some of our other funding programs, we have, you know, are funding 30, 40, 50 different organizations and programs at a time. And the volume is not as much for this fund, which is a good thing. I could see that organizations might be interested in, and maybe you all as commissioners would be interested in having one meeting, you know, where a significant portion, and maybe in person, right, if that happens again, you're able to just celebrate and hear each other and kind of see each other in that way without having to, you know, kind of have the relationship only focused on, you know, the allocations and the reporting, but just really be able to celebrate all that they're doing and kind of the collective contribution and impact on the community. So none of those kinds of ideas, I think, are off the table, just based on commissioners' interest and making sure that the opportunity is one that our grantees would really want to take advantage of. Not feel like it's, you know, kind of another thing that's not beneficial to them. Any other questions or concerns, suggestions? Okay. I don't know that this needs to result in a vote, but it would be great just to have some kind of affirmation. If any of you are interested potentially in serving on this committee, I don't know that we need to know that right now, but it would be good to just let Ingrid or myself know about that. And if it's something that you'd want a little bit more information as we get a little more detailed in how we would put this together, we can certainly do that in terms of what might the time estimate be, you know, for reading, reviewing. You already have a good sense of that based on what you have been doing, but we can certainly help provide more information to help you decide. Ingrid, is there anything you wanted to share?
No, I think everything was covered pretty well.
I will say too, our grant specialist, her name is Markeisha Key Hagen, and who's been working primarily on our Health Equity Fund, Human Services Fund, Substance Education Awareness Fund, has been helping Ingrid out a lot the past several months in getting the contracts out for Human Relations Fund as well. So she's already been doing some of that work. It's not nothing. So it's an additional step for them. And she's just really good at it as well. And so, and Ingrid has been as well, right? But this will really kind of enable Ingrid to focus a little bit more on all the other elements of community relations, human rights management, which we appreciate. And then Jalea Daly is our quite new Human Services Investments Manager. So she's actually taken my slot in that role. She started right at the end of October and has participated in some of our conversations so far about restructuring this and is really eager to learn more and know what she can do to help. And they're both pretty fabulous. We're glad to have them on our HHS team, and I think you'll be really pleased collectively how we and they will be able to make the process work. And if it's not, we will change it, right? I mean, I'm probably kind of looking at this next year as a bit of a pilot to make sure the process works all the way around. And if it doesn't, we shall change it and make it so. Well, thank you very much for your support throughout this process. I know it can be really gratifying and also, you know, something that we all would love to have continue to succeed. So for some other staff update elements, I'm going to go back to screen share, and it's still not giving me any option to do the window. So if you have a question, if you don't mind just shouting it out, please do. And I'll just kind of stop after each segment, see if there are any questions. And then if there are not, just continue to move on. And we can provide this PowerPoint presentation to you all afterwards, so you actually have the links that are embedded in here. So just wanted to provide some updates on opportunities for commissioners to get more information on projects and programs that we're either leading here in HHS, Housing and Human Services, or that you have kind of following up on some of the items that have been presented and discussed at recent past meetings. So the first thing, just because it's happening this week, the city staff, including a team here in HHS, are going to be presenting to City Council on Thursday, this coming Thursday, December 1st, during the council meeting for our American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, Tranche 3, or kind of like third phase funding allocation proposals. And among the programs that we are proposing be supported include a guaranteed income pilot project. And for folks who are not familiar, this is a type of financial assistance program that just provides an amount per month, typically of cash, of funding to people chosen to participate in the program, with no strings attached, to really see and kind of test, right, the model that people who are experiencing low income do not have any lack of character, but just lack cash, and to see what kind of outcomes, economic, mental health, physical health and well-being, employment, what other kinds of changes can be brought about for an individual and a community. We are also going to be proposing funds be utilized for mental and behavioral health support, for childcare support, for a second mortgage program to help enable very low income community members in manufactured housing communities, first Ponderosa, and then as part of a revolving fund, hopefully to other community members as well. And then also some conversation around how to allocate any funds that might be unspent that we've already allocated for use for things like arts programming and basic needs assistance. So that's going to be on Thursday, and the link is in the PowerPoint that goes to the link to watch city council meetings, look at the agendas, etc. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. And the second item on this page is just some updates on the Reimagining Policing and the Community Assistance Response Team initiatives. And our colleague Wendy Schwartz presented a couple of different times on this, first with Chief Harold about the Reimagining Policing program. There is a community engagement window, kind of the fourth window, that is open now, and community survey available in English and Spanish. It was just made public on November 19. So if it's something that you all might be interested in taking, if you can help share it around to other community members, we'd really appreciate that. And then on December 8th, Wendy will be presenting again to City Council on the Community Assistance Response Team. And again, this is a presentation, a discussion you had at a recent HRC meeting. And Lindsay, I know, provided some additional feedback and some suggestions about other cities' co-responder models and to look at. And so I know that Wendy's has taken a look. So again, on December 8th, you're more than welcome and encouraged to watch that meeting agenda item. Let us know if you have any questions or comments in the meantime, and help spread the word. So next is we have received a request from the City Attorney's Office and the Municipal Court staff to get input to come to an HRC meeting so they can share with you some about the community court program, and hopefully get your feedback and input on a draft ordinance that would kind of codify community court as an offering from the city. And so there's a link in the presentation where you can read about the community court process. It's been quite successful so far, and this would be an opportunity maybe at a January meeting or March to hear more about this and provide some input on that draft ordinance language. So this is actually one item for which it would be really helpful to hear back from commissioners as to whether or not this is something you'd be interested in. And if so, we can go ahead and add it to the list of possible agenda items for meetings in 2023. And then two kind of final updates here. One is a grantee event for Bridge House. The Day of Remembrance for unhoused community members is going to be on December 21st at 4 p.m. The full information is not yet on our website. At least I didn't see it earlier this afternoon, but they'll be providing more of that later on. And then HRC recruitment. We'll be continuing, Ingrid and I, to stay in touch with our staff colleagues about just opening up processes for the next year in recruiting members. And that is all I have by way of update. I will stop sharing again and just see if there are any comments or questions from you all.
More affirmation from me. I saw a lot of good work in there, but I'm really excited about the guaranteed income program. So thank you for your work on that, and all the other cool stuff that you all staff do. Appreciation for you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Are any of you interested in getting, I recognize the email overload, so I would not take this as an assumption, but we can share with any of you who want any more information about any of the ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act proposed allocations. Carlos is quite familiar with the second mortgage program. Others, Lindsay, I know you're familiar with at least some of the proposals, but if any of you are interested in getting more information or just want to get some updates moving forward, we certainly can do that. Great. So another question then is the request for HRC input on the community court system. Is that something that you all are interested in having as an agenda item on an upcoming meeting, if we assume for the moment that the February meeting is going to be on the protected classes, I don't think we want to load that one up with anything else. But this could be a January or March, you know, depending on the time frame that they're looking for input. Seeing nods and thumbs up. JH, how does that sound to you?
That sounds really good to me. If it works.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Then we will move forward with that as well and schedule. Thanks, speaker. Anything else that you have heard about, wondered about, either from HHS or city in general, that is on your minds that you would like for Ingrid and I to follow up on?
Just, yeah, I'm interested at some point in understanding what the status is with the police oversight panel. I read an article a few days ago from Boulder Reporting Lab about some of their recommendations not being taken, and also with staff leaving and one of the committee members resigning. I just kind of interested in understanding what's happening.
Sure. Are you, at least at the moment, Christine, thinking that might be someone from staff coming and giving an update and kind of getting questions and input, or is there some, that's not a leading question, just wondering kind of what format you're thinking would be most helpful?
I would just like to be more informed than I am. I guess that's
Sure.
my goal.
Any other anyone second? We're not taking a vote, but affirm that suggestion rather, or anything else specifically you want to know about that panel that we could reach out to our colleagues?
I second that. Specifics right now, you know, I would have to, I saw that article and have not yet read it, so I think I'd want to better understand like the concerns to have specifics. But I remember after the police encounter that, you know, precipitated the formation of the police oversight board that you know, was the Zeta Atkinson incident. I had a conversation with Rose Salamanca from the Department of Justice, and she was really insistent about the role of HRCs, municipal HRCs, as a permanent feature that was originally established, among other things, but really to act with like to be a permanent feature with some police oversight, because what they found is like that committees and boards like the police oversight commission we have in Boulder, or the police oversight body that we have in Boulder, they come and they go, and the HRCs tend to stick around. So she seemed to think that like our role in like being a more institutionalized body was really important in like the oversight of the functioning of the oversight committee, because this isn't something that sounds like atypical for these types of oversight bodies.
So it could be an update on, you know, kind of like what's going on with the panel, what's current status, kind of an update, again, given some more recent news. And then maybe just, I don't want to read put words in your mouth, Lindsay, far be it. But just also just what is the role, or kind of what is the interplay of or intersection of roles between the HRC and the panel, right? So just kind of where do the issues overlap, connect, some exploration or discussion about that. It sounds might be helpful as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate like direction, or like it's a good direction to go in with what I'm like highlighting and suggesting. And I think it would be like one helpful step, I think, would be to open a collaboration with some of the people, or conversations with the people on that body itself, or even the person or the people who felt like they could no longer serve on that body, to understand what was getting in the way or making that difficult.
Okay. I am taking notes, and I know Ingrid is as well. What I suggest, just let's take this, Ingrid, just kind of over to some of our city colleagues and see what, and kind of bring back a more specific suggestion for an agenda item in kind of first quarter 2023. And if there are very specific questions in the meantime that we might be able to help kind of get an answer, a response, or more information by email, we can do that too. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. I just have one more thing, which is not substantive, but more process thing, but maybe now's the right place to bring it up. I was wondering if maybe we need to reassess what week of the month we have our meetings, because I was just realizing now that we're like with MLK in January, President's Day in February, those of us with kids who have spring break in March, Juneteenth in June, Thanksgiving in November, and Christmas in December. I'm not sure that it makes sense for us to meet on the third week of the month, because that's half the year where we have to reschedule.
Kind of setting up for rescheduling the whole.
Yeah. So I don't know if we should maybe reconsider like meeting the first or second week of the month instead. It feels like we might run into less scheduling issues with holidays. But I just want to throw that out there. We could talk about it next month. I don't know.
Are folks open to that? Just to see, it seems like it would make a lot of sense, just at minimum, to avoid the very set, major kind of milestones and holidays that none of us can control. The timing of which none of us can control. So maybe what we could do is Ingrid and I can just kind of look at, again, kind of the overall calendar and just see if there are some consistent, maybe it's still a Monday, maybe it's a different Monday, is it a different time day altogether, and just kind of see what your all's availability is, and just playing that out and seeing if there are any other, what avoids the least other disruptions. Carlos and JH, does that sound okay?
Yes, that sounds fine.
Sí, yo estoy de acuerdo.
Yes, I agree. But for me, it would be better maybe to the last week of each month or the last Monday of each month. I feel that would be a good option as well.
Thank you. We'll look at that. And Fikar, saw your thumbs up. Thank you. Great. Thank you for Christine for bringing that up as well. Well, I think that's all we have. except to say the meeting's not quite done yet, but just thank you so much. If we're not having a meeting in December, currently we do not have one scheduled. When Ingrid kind of spoke with everyone and we talked about a little bit last month. Again, hard to pick a day in the last part of the month that would be likely to work well for you all. You put in a lot of time and effort all year long, and there's going to be plenty to do starting up again in January. So just again, thank you so much for everything that you do, the way you show up in these spaces, and for helping make sure that we as staff and the city as a whole do our jobs as equitably and inclusively as possible.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. That brings us to our events updates. What events have you been at since we last met? I see you.
I've got one. I went with my family to the Feet Forward event on Thanksgiving, where I don't know how many turkeys were cooked up, but about 200 people were served Thanksgiving dinner. And this was I'd been intending to go for over a year to one of their Tuesday events, but I finally made it on Thursday. And I just want to say I am just really impressed and blown away by what Jennifer Livovich has done in really, I think, 2.5, 3 years. So we had a really nice afternoon there.
Carlos?
Sí, yo este mes estuve en 2 eventos.
Yes, this month I attended a couple of events. First, I went to an interview that we had where we were talking about Omni Health, which is an insurance for undocumented people or people without documents. This was put together by the newspaper El Comercio in Colorado, and the person that led that event is the person in charge of putting together this process for health coverage. So we had some conversation. I had some questions about this insurance, and it's going to be coming out in the newscast in Univision on TV, and also I believe in the newspaper El Comercio. This interview we had, it was about 7 people present from the community. And the second event was a training that I went from with 9 to 5, where we talked about leadership and empowerment. These were the events that I attended.
Thank you, Carlos. I went to, this isn't an event that we funded, but the Arts Commission funded, also Feet Forward. I forget the name, the lived experience photography exhibit at the library. It was a collaboration between Feet Forward and Unboxed Photography. I really enjoyed that, and it was interesting to see the photos that got selected. Many more got selected, many more were submitted than got selected. The photo project was people experiencing homelessness get a disposable camera, take photos, and then a photographer develops them and selects a number for display at the library. And so it was interesting to see just like how people frame their lives and the images that got selected. I also went to Trans Day of Remembrance at Out Boulder, and there were so many people there because this was really like the full day after the Club Q shooting, and it was standing room only into the hallway, and people were shoulder to shoulder. People really showed up for that event, and they all wore masks, which made the proximity feel a little bit more comfortable, because I think there were over 100 people there, and if you've ever been in Out Boulder's community room, it's quite small. Any other updates from commissioners? I have a quick update that I want to spend a few minutes on before we sign off, since we won't be meeting in December. This month actually marks my 5 years on the commission, and I have really learned a lot, and been a part of some really cool work, and feeling very appreciative. I'm also moving on to some like cool professional work in 2023 that I'm really excited about. So before the end of the year, I am going to send a letter to City Council letting them know that I'm going to be resigning at the next cycle for appointments for new commissioners. So that means that in the spring, I forget if it's April or May will be my last meeting, but that will be my last meeting. So I wanted to let you all know about that first. And one thing that I would really love to begin to do, and thanks for all the emoji support, but one thing that I would really love to do, and I'm actually going to need to do in January, because part of my the professional things that I'm excited about are international and come with some like incredibly early morning commitments, like 6 a.m. So I'm not going to have the capacity to facilitate these meetings into the late night and then do such an early morning meeting the next morning. So I'm hoping we can talk about the interim part of my interim chair and someone else taking over the responsibility of facilitating these meetings, especially when they fall immediately, mere hours before the 6 o'clock meeting I'll have to have with people from across the world. So more on that to come. I'm going to follow up with Elizabeth and Ingrid over email, but I wanted to share that with you all before, since we're not meeting in December.
That is quite something to celebrate, Lindsay, your 5 years. And I know you've mentioned it to the group before, but just, again, lots of appreciation for your work. And I believe we can make it, help make it a doable task, even given your other commitments moving forward.
Thank you so much, and appreciation for all of you too. All right, well, with that, if we have nothing else for other items, I'm going to hand it off to staff for follow-up items, and then we'll adjourn.
Okay, Well, going back to the first agenda item for the meeting tonight is following up with Lindsay, with Christine and Carlos about scheduling the agenda item on protected classes for February. Ingrid and Markeisha and I will get to work on contracts and just kind of supporting getting contracts in place for the MLK Day events for those funding decisions that you made today. And then a few different items for follow-up, reaching back out to our colleagues about coming to an HRC meeting in first quarter 2023 on community court, checking in with some of our colleagues for just kind of several questions and discussion possibilities regarding the oversight panel. And last but not least, looking at revising the day and time of the month for next meetings, and then getting this new funding program structure in place. Ingrid, what else?
I have, can you hear me? Am I muted? Oh, I'm sorry. Great. Let me look at my notes here. Nope, I think you got it all.
And wishing you all a pretty fabulous holiday season, however, with whomever you celebrate, whatever you celebrate, and a really great new year. I bet we'll be in touch at least by email before then. Would love an opportunity to have some in-person meetings again, starting in January, if that works out.
Yeah, and I believe that just as a reminder that the January meeting has been scheduled for January 23rd, based on our conversations that Martin Luther King Day is Monday the 16th. Just wanted to remind you all of that.
Thank you for that reminder, Ingrid.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you all very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to make that motion too. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Yo la secundo.
I second that.
Gracias a todos. Buenas noches. Y
thanks to everyone. Good night. And we'll see you next year.
Indeed.
Okay.
Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, interpreters,
Yes.
for your help too.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks, interpreters. Take care, everyone.